Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I have a first impressions to do for you on it kind of gets lost on that, doesn't it? On the Grimsmo Norseman. And this Norseman was loaned to me by my buddy Sean, aka Geared Toward Gear. I will link down below to Sean on Instagram and YouTube. His YouTube channel is fantastic, and I wish he would upload more. He does post on Instagram quite a bit, and he's become a buddy. I've had him on the podcast. We've been in Facebook groups for a long time together, and he's a really cool dude. So he loaned me this Norseman, and I had never... I'd handled one once briefly at a knife show, basically. I might have handled somebody else's at some point, but I'd never carried one of these. I'd never used one for any kind of cutting, and he knew that, and he loaned me his. And after my unboxing, he even said, go ahead and cut with it and use it like you would a normal EDC knife, and see what you think about it, and actually put it through its paces. I think he intends for this to be a user for himself personally, so that's really, really cool of him. And I have been using it a decent bit. In some of the unboxings that I just did, used it. I've been opening packages with it. I did cut a little cardboard for the dumpster with it today. If you saw on my Instagram stories today, we had a bunny-shaped balloon from Easter that my wife said we needed to throw away, and so I pulled this out and just shanked it a bunch of times on Instagram. Anyways, that was fun. So it's cut a balloon as well. But yeah, I've been putting it through its paces. I've carried it now for 2 whole days, and that's first impressions territory. I feel comfortable beginning to talk about it. I am gonna try not to get too deep on this one because I'm starting to develop some opinions, and I'm worried that I'll let myself start kind of ranting, and then if I end up there in the same place in the full review, then it'll seem a little too redundant if I go down that ranting arena. And so in the full review, I'm probably going to end up talking about the steel choice of CPM 154. I'm probably going to talk about the price that these cost. And for now, I think I'm going to kind of leave those things out. Everything else that I've started to notice, I think would be fair to begin talking about. So let's just kind of jump into it, if you will. All right. The way this knife is put together is fairly simple. We've got titanium handle scales. This one is the starburst or sunburst pattern. Something burst. It's bursting. I like that it's on both sides. It's even onto the lock bar. It's just nude titanium everywhere. I believe at Grimsmo they make all of their own hardware. I know they at least do the pivot, because look at that. The hardware is all really nice. The pocket clip is very nice. The blade is CPM 154, but they do this kind of stepped milling pattern on it that looks, to me, pretty cool. I like that on knives. I think it looks different and unique, and I like seeing a milled pattern on a blade, specifically the way they've done this, not just start milling lines in a blade for no reason, but when they've milled the grind into it, I think it looks really cool, and I prefer it to Damascus personally. I think it looks even better. So yeah, big blade, CPM 154. It's quite a lot of blade if you're if you're really looking at this knife. I feel like some people maybe don't realize how large this knife is if they've never had one. It's a very big knife. But yeah, let's talk first impressions so far. So I've carried it 2 whole days. Cut cardboard, I've cut tape. Here's what I've found about cutting with it so far. The way that this compound grind is done for an EDC knife, so a lot of tape and cardboard and soft to medium density materials, I don't like this tip. Because it gets so thick behind the edge up here, as if you're supposed to, I don't know, chisel through wood with it or something. I don't know. I don't like how thick this tip is at all. When I've used that tip to try to penetrate into things, it has done a very poor job. Here's this box, right? I just unboxed a ProTech in this. And the tip is just, it's thick and difficult to kind of push through. Now, the redeeming factor, to an extent, is that because it's a tanto, you have this like secondary tip right here, and this one is nice and thin. And with that tip, if I drag that through material, it's noticeably easier. If you look at the types of cuts that those two tips, if you will, just made, look, that's the thick tip. It's way more difficult to push that much material through cardboard. And then the tanto, secondary little tip, is much easier. Makes a finer cut, right? There's blade geometry for you right there. Toss that over there. I don't like this tip. I don't see the usefulness for it on a beautiful EDC, kind of gentlemanly, maybe, knife. Like, this is a very expensive, like, EDC knife. I don't see this as an outdoorsman's tool. I don't, like, that's not the niche I see this fitting in. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm off there. But, I don't know. I would like a thinner, more precise tip for, like, that's where your cut begins a lot of the time. But it does help that it has this thin kind of secondary tip down here. You can even choke way up here and just kind of drag that through material. So that does help. I don't want to say that it's a terrible cutter because the tip is thick, because they've given you another one that's thin. So that's fair. The recurve section in here, I have found for like pressing through cardboard, great. Recurves function really, really well for pushing through sheets of material like cardboard. I love it for stuff like that. So that's been nice. The edge that's on here is phenomenal. It's a very good edge. It is nice and thin right down behind the edge, especially in that recurve. So it's a good cutting profile. I love the crown spine, by the way. I wish more people would do crown spines. I just think it feels so nice to the touch, and it seems a little bit more refined and finished than the contrary. So yeah, I like that. Not a huge fan of the jimping. I could do without it, although it's not super aggressive jimping, so it doesn't really bother me per se. I just don't love it. Ergonomically, this knife I found fits my hand super well. That was one thing that I wasn't quite expecting out of the box. I know I'd held them momentarily, but like actually having one in my possession that's not like the owner is watching me handle it for a second before I'm going to hand it back to them, but having one that like I'm kind of test driving, I've just found it fits really, really well in my hand, especially for how thin this profile is. It's very comfortable in hand. I like the tallness this way. I like the pattern on it. I find it does give me good grip without being aggressive at all. There's a little bit of a thumb ramp here, so I can kind of push in there, pull the knife back with these fingers into my palm. It's rounded back here, so it rests in well. It is ergonomically a very good knife for my hands, and I wear medium-sized gloves, but I fill them out real well. So, I don't know. It's just, I'm liking the ergos. Don't love the tip, but I like the secondary tip. The action, for now, this is my biggest letdown on the knife, if I'm being totally honest, because I think so much of the allure for the Norseman to so many people is the action, because it drops shut. But notice, it bounces out. Like, that bounce bugs me, because this is a really expensive knife, and the focal point for so many people is the action. And that's not a good thing on action, when the blade bounces out and rebounds. Like, this detent should hold the knife back in my opinion. It shouldn't need another push or another bounce. Like, that to me is like, that's not cool. And I don't know if that's every Norseman. I don't know if maybe you could adjust yours and get it tuned out, but this knife is perfectly centered. The action on deployment feels great. It's free dropping. It seems to me more like the detent just isn't quite, I don't know, but it's a strong detent. Like, this is almost too strong of a detent for a flipper, especially because this flipper tab is rounded. So there are times when I slip off of it because it's a sturdy detent. And with the thumb stud, it's great. It's plenty of pop for the thumb stud. So it's not really that the detent is weak. I don't know what it is. I don't like that it bounces out. That bugs me on a knife that's like $1,000. I consider that not necessarily a flaw, but like kind of a flaw. I don't know. I don't like it. So that bugs me a little bit. The other thing that bugs me, you could kind of call on action, is the fact that I can't Spidey flick this knife because they only put one thumb stud in it. I know that it is an option from Grimsmo to have two thumb studs put in if you're having them build you one. Like if your spot comes up or you win a lottery or whatever it is and you're able to spec your Norseman out and they're building it for you, you can do double thumb studs. And I think it's like, I don't know, I want to say Sean told me it was like $40 more if you're having the knife built to have them add it. But I mean, why not just have two thumb studs on the knife? I said this in my unboxing. I was like, somebody enlighten me as to why it wouldn't make more sense to just have a thumb stud on each side. And I didn't see an answer that convinced me at all. I think, in fact, most people were like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. Like, most people who responded to that line in the video were like, yep, I wish it had double thumb studs as well. It doesn't make sense to me. Why leave off a thumb stud over here? It doesn't make the knife more comfortable. It doesn't get in the way of anything, in my opinion. The thumb stud already sits flush with the line of the scale, so it's not like it's going to be wider here in pocket or poking you or anything. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me because I like to middle finger flick knives, and I wish I could try middle finger flicking this Norseman. Maybe it's terrible for middle finger flicking. I've never tried one with double thumb studs and tried to middle finger flick it. So it could be that it's so aggravating to try to middle finger flick it that they're like, let's try to not give people that option so they can't say it sucks at middle finger flicking, because it just won't right now, right? But like, I don't know, let me try it with my left hand. It's not fair. Oh, with my left hand it worked, and I held it like a weirdo. So, I don't know. I think I would like to middle finger flick this knife. If the action is so amazing and that's the draw of it, that's my favorite way to open a knife. And a lot of thumb stud knives are good at middle finger flicking. So, give me a thumb stud on the other side. I don't know. It also may seem extra nitpicky because if you're having one built, you can have them add it. Sure. Fair. Okay. But why not just put it on every one? Why not make it so if you want it to only have one, that's the thing you specify, and have it default to having one on both sides? Like, I just don't believe there's an advantage to having only one thumb stud on. Is it a weight savings thing? No. Like, that's so insignificant compared to what this whole knife weighs and is constructed of. I don't get it. So, I don't know. Again, someone enlighten me. If I'm missing something, I would like to learn. If not, I'm frankly, personally, kind of holding that against the build of the knife, that it doesn't default to having two thumb studs. Just like, I don't know. Well, again, we'll talk steel in the full review, but that's another thing that irks me a little bit. CPM 154 at this price point is just, it's a little bit beyond me. So yeah, let's talk carry for a second. It carries pretty well. It's super, super slim. This knife has only been in pocket for me as a primary. This is not secondary size knife, but for a milled titanium clip that's not deep carry, this knife carries like a dream because it's super slim. It's not crazy heavy because the scales are relatively slim. The blade is heavy. Like the construction, it's not light. This isn't a lightweight knife, but for it being an all metal construction and being this big, it feels very pleasant in pocket so far. I like that about it. But yeah, I don't know. This is one that like I kind of bumped this up in my queue of filming this tonight. I was going to film this tomorrow, but I wanted to make sure I get it shot and get it up relatively soon because every time I post about this knife or people remember that I have this knife, I get a lot of questions. Do I like this? People have been asking me to review this knife also for a very long time, and people seem to be curious what I think about it. And the answer at the moment is absolutely, I would not purchase one of these with my own money. I wouldn't. I just recently purchased a Holt haptic. My full review will be coming on that soon. And now that I've gotten those issues with it sorted out, which was somebody else's disassembly, it wasn't the Holt's that led to some issues with that knife. I've got it all sorted out now. I'm loving that knife. That knife cost $1,000, and that felt so much more, or feels so much more, worth its price tag than this does to me. This feels dated to me. The steel choice, the type of construction, the single thumbs, like there's just, I don't know. Maybe it's because I know in my head that the haptic is a new model for Holt, and I know that this has been out for quite a while, but even like if I could buy this knife for $600, I wouldn't. I'd buy something else. At the moment. Maybe it'll win me over by the time I do my full review. But that's kind of where I'm at on it in the moment. There's nothing about it that's like making me love it. It's very, very nice. The ergos are good. The cutting, if you use it in a particular way, is very good. The carry is quite nice. It feels expensive and nice, but the looks of it don't really draw me in. The horse genitalia shaped blade I laugh at in person too. It's not just in photos. It looks like that. That makes me laugh. I don't know, just overall it's like it doesn't really win me over. I'm not loving it. I respect that it's nice. I respect that their machining is very, very good, but I don't really find myself like wanting one yet. We'll see. Maybe that'll change. But that's my first impressions. I think that's a fair way to kind of end it on this one. So I'll do my full review soon. This will have been in pocket more. It will have done some more cutting. And yeah, hopefully I'll have more to say about it. I'll have learned more. But we'll probably also end up going deep into the weeds on that video about this steel choice and a couple of other things. But anyway, thanks for checking it out, guys. Again, Geared Toward Gear will be linked down below. I appreciate it that he loaned this to me. And yeah, this has been my first impressions of the Grimsmo Norseman. Thanks, guys.